Okay, so now we're going to move on to our buffer for sodium hydroxide additions or basic additions or alkaline, whatever you want to call it. Just getting zoomed in here. All right. So let's go ahead and add our buffer to this beaker. 50 mLs. Next, I'm going to clean off my pH electrode. And let's get a pH strip read of the buffer. Let's just stir this up a bit. Okay. So that's the pH strip reading. Let's see what the pH meter tells us. Just dry off my electrode here and add it to my buffer. Okay, so after our pH has stabilized here, it looks like the base pH of just our buffer, actually it looks like we're not quite stable yet. You can see the pH is blinking. Okay, the initial pH of our buffer is 4.51. So comparing that to our pH strip here, yeah, looks like we should expect it to be between 4 and 5 based on what our pH strip has told us. It's still kind of drifting a bit. We'll call it 4.52. And now we're going to add 5 milliliters of our sodium hydroxide. Okay, so our read has stabilized. Our initial pH value for our buffer is about 4.54. And we will add 5 milliliters of 0.1 molar sodium hydroxide to this. Stir it for a minute. That should be good. .68. So we're probably not going to be able to distinguish this very well from the last pH strip we read, which was this color. But let's go ahead and get another pH strip in here. We'll stir this a little bit. And compare. So this is our old one on top. This is our new one on bottom. Let me see if I can get this to focus. So let's just do the new one here. focus. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to see. It's still between 4 and 5. All right, after our first addition, 5 milliliter addition of 0.1 molar sodium hydroxide to our buffer, our pH is at 4.7. So let's add another 5 mils of the 0.1 molar sodium hydroxide, and we'll stir. That should be good. We'll let it sit for just a moment here. All right, so after our second addition of 5 milliliters of 0.1 molar sodium hydroxide, our pH is now at 4.86. I'm going to add now 10 milliliters of 0.1 sodium hydroxide and stir. And that should be good. We'll turn that off. So now we should be between 5 and 6. We'll take another pH strip read. Turn on some stirring here. And let's compare that to our other one. You can see that it is getting lighter. It's a little hard to tell with the light here, but yeah, it's definitely getting lighter, but it's still really hard to distinguish the two. So now we've added a total of 20 milliliters of 0.1 sodium hydroxide to our buffer, and our pH is at 5.26. I'm going to add another 10 milliliters of 0.1 sodium hydroxide and turn on the stirring. Let that stir up. That should be good. Now I actually have to transfer this over to a bigger beaker, so I'm going to pause here and get that back into a bigger beaker. Okay, so we've added a total of 30 milliliters to our buffer now of 0.1 molar sodium hydroxide. Our pH meter is registering a pH of 6.68. So if we look at our pH strip values, you can see that 6 and 7 should show up kind of a greenish. So let's see if that's the case when I take a reading here. And yeah, you can start to see now the difference between the colors as we get to these higher pHs. The one on the right is our newest reading. The one on the left is our last read. And yeah, it does look like it's probably falling into there. So let's record our pH value. It's 6.68. And now I'm going to add 20 milliliters more of my sodium hydroxide. And we'll stir for a bit. Alright, that should be good. So with that last addition, it looks like we've probably pushed over our buffer's ability to really effectively protect us from a drastic change in pH. Let's go ahead and get a read from our pH strip first. Yeah, so it's blue. The problem here is you start to get in the same problem you have with acids, where it's hard to distinguish exactly how blue is blue. So our pH meter reached 12.22 after a total of 50 ml has been added. Our pH strip tells us that it looks more like it's at like 11 to 12, so yeah, that's about right. Let's add the last bit of sodium hydroxide here. This is 50 mLs more. And we'll stir again. That's probably good. We'll take one last read with our pH strip. Yeah, it's still pretty blue. Puts us right between 12 and 13 by my eye, which is where it should be reading, because our pH meter shows a pH of about 12.54. Alright, so let's see how base additions to just distilled water go.